You lock your doors at night. You check the security cameras, set the alarms, and make sure every physical entry point into your home is secure. You put your hard-earned cash in the bank, right in the digital vault where the entire financial system told you it would be completely safe. Before you close your eyes, you check your banking app one last time. The number on the screen is exactly what you expect it to be. Every dollar you traded your time for, every cent you bled for over the last month is accounted for. You fall asleep with the comforting thought that your wealth is protected, guarded by the thick walls of institutions and the complexity of modern cryptography. But while your eyes are closed, someone is reaching directly into your pocket. I am not talking about a petty thief breaking a window or a hacker sitting in a basement halfway across the world trying to steal your password. I am talking about a completely legal, government-approved, perfectly optimized system that is siphoning your wealth away, second by second, breath by breath, while you are absolutely sound asleep and entirely defenseless. When you wake up the next morning, that money in your account is still there. The number has not changed by a single digit. The bank teller will smile warmly at you and confirm that your balance is completely intact. The ATM will print a receipt validating your hard work. But the moment you step out into the real world, the moment you go to buy a house, purchase a car, or even just pay for your basic weekly groceries, you realize the horrifying truth. The power of that money has evaporated. You are poorer today than you were yesterday, and nobody had to break a single physical lock to make it happen. We call this the silent purge of the middle class, or, as the financial elites and politically motivated economists prefer to politely disguise it, inflation. You hear that word every single day on the news. You read it in headlines. You hear anchors and analysts casually discuss it as if it were just the weather, a sudden rainstorm that nobody could predict and nobody can control. They will look you right in the eye through the television screen and tell you that inflation is a mystery, a complex byproduct of supply chain issues, or the result of greedy local supermarkets suddenly deciding to raise their prices. They gaslight you into believing it is a temporary crisis that requires patience, a natural economic cycle that you simply have to endure like a good, obedient citizen. But by the end of this entirely uncensored revelation, you are going to realize that inflation is not an accident at all. It is not a natural cycle. It is the most brilliant, most ruthless, and most mathematically effective wealth transfer mechanism ever designed in the history of human civilization. And if you do not wake up right now, if you refuse to understand the exact hidden pipeline through which the architects of this system are draining your life energy, you will continue to work yourself to the bone until you are 65, only to realize that despite doing everything right, you own absolutely nothing. I am not here to give you a boring university lecture on macroeconomics. You can take those academic textbooks filled with jargon and throw them completely in the trash. We are going strictly behind the curtain. We are going to expose the invisible thief that ruins families, bankrupts the working class, and quietly builds empires for those already at the top. Open your mind completely, because the reality of what is happening to your bank account will make you question the validity of every single hour you have ever worked in your life. Let us begin with the grand masterclass of deception, the illusion of the corporate raise. Think about your daily reality. You work your heart out. You sacrifice your personal life. You stay late at the office on Fridays when you should be with your family or building your own future. You endure endless, mind-numbing meetings, toxic corporate politics, and the terrifying anxiety of performance reviews. You do all of this for the sacred promise of progression. And at the end of a grueling year, your manager calls you into a bright, glass-walled office, shakes your hand with an artificial smile, and proudly announces that the company is giving you a 5% raise. You celebrate. You go home and open a bottle of wine. You call your parents to tell them you are finally moving up in the world. You look at your next paycheck and intuitively, you feel a sense of victory because the nominal number, the actual digits printed on the digital screen, has visibly gone up. You have more dollars. The system tells you that you are making progress. But a deep, suffocating anxiety remains. Despite that raise, why do you feel like you are drowning faster than before? Why is your credit card debt creeping higher every month? Why does the idea of buying a decent home, something your parents achieved with a single average income, now feel like a completely impossible pipe dream, reserved only for the ultra-rich or those with massive inheritances? Because the system handed you more numerical units, but they secretly and aggressively stole your actual purchasing power from the back door. Imagine you are playing an incredibly high-stakes game of Monopoly representing your entire life. You play by the rules for hours. You save every penny, you avoid expensive mistakes, and you finally gather enough cash to buy the most valuable property on the board. You are one turn away from securing your financial future. But right before you can hand your cash to the bank, the banker, who controls the entire game, reaches under the table, secretly prints 10 times more Monopoly money, and quietly hands it to the wealthiest players who are already dominating the board. Suddenly, the wealthiest players start aggressively buying everything. The price of the property you wanted shoots up by 50% in a single turn. You look down at your hands. Your money hasn't changed. You didn't lose any physical bills, but the power of your money to actually buy that property has been crushed into absolute dust. That is the grand illusion you are living in every single day. You are chasing a carrot attached to a stick, running faster and faster on an exhausting hamster wheel, genuinely believing you are getting ahead purely because the numbers in your account are getting bigger. But the finish line is deliberately being moved back 10 miles for every single mile you run. Your bank account is nothing more than a psychological mirage. In the real world, away from the digital screens, you are being paid in melting ice cubes. And here's the part of the equation that should absolutely terrify you. When a block of ice melts, the water does not just vanish into another dimension. Matter cannot be destroyed. It only changes form and location. The wealth that you lost, the purchasing power that evaporated from your savings account over the last 3 years, did not just disappear into thin air. It went somewhere. So the ultimate forbidden question is this: whose pockets is your stolen wealth filling right at this exact moment? Where is the water from your melting ice cube flowing? To understand the identity of the invisible thief, you do not need a degree in advanced finance. Economic jargon is purposely designed to make you feel stupid so that you stop asking questions. All you need is basic, undeniable common sense. Think of the entire wealth of your nation, every single thing produced, as one giant, incredibly rich pot of soup. Everything you and millions of hard-working citizens produce every day makes up the substance of this soup. The houses built, the software coded, the wheat harvested, the medical services provided. These are the physical realities of wealth. Your money, the dollars or euros sitting in your wallet, are not wealth in themselves. They are nothing more than the ladles, the tools you use to extract your fair, earned portion of that societal soup. Now, consider what happens when the people sitting at the absolute peak of the pyramid, the central bankers, the massive political machines that need to fund endless international conflicts, or the governments desperate to buy votes to stay in power, decide they want a much larger portion of that soup. They have a problem. They do not want to actually do the brutal, back-breaking work of contributing to the pot. They do not want to build houses or write code, and they certainly cannot come directly to your house and steal your specific ladle by force. If the government directly confiscated 30% of the money from everyone's checking account overnight, there would be riots in the streets by morning. Pitchforks would be at their doors. The illusion of civilization would collapse. So what do they do instead? They execute the most elegant robbery ever conceived. They simply pour millions of gallons of water directly into the soup. Behind heavily guarded doors, they turn on the digital printing presses. With a single keystroke on a computer terminal, they create trillions of new dollars entirely out of thin air. They do not produce any new houses to match this money. They do not grow any new crops. They do not invent any new technologies. They just mathematically create billions of new ladles out of nothing. They aggressively flood the entire system with new currency. Now, the architecture of this flood is not equal. When this massive tsunami of newly printed money enters the economy, it does not magically appear in your bank account. It is distributed through a highly specific pipeline. Their friends, the giant financial institutions, the mega corporations, the massive hedge funds, and the heavily indebted government entities get to use those brand new ladles first. This mechanism is known among the elites as the Cantillon Effect, and it is the single most important economic law you have never been taught in school. The Cantillon Effect simply states that whoever is closest to the money printer benefits the most, while whoever is furthest away gets absolutely crushed. When the central bank prints $1 trillion, the giant banks receive it immediately at near zero interest rates. They use that fresh, wildly powerful money to buy up real estate, massive stocks, and entire businesses before the prices of those assets have had any chance to adjust to the new money supply. They buy the meat and the potatoes out of the soup while the purchasing power of the dollar is still relatively high. But by the time that newly printed money finally drips down the pyramid, filtering through the economy over months and years, and finally reaches you in the form of that pathetic 5% annual raise, the damage has already been done. The soup has been completely diluted. You are left standing at the bottom of the pyramid, holding a mathematically worthless ladle, trying to scoop up broth that tastes like absolutely nothing. The prices of housing, fuel, food, and energy have already skyrocketed because the elites bought everything up using the newly created money. Your lifelong savings, the money you diligently hid under your mattress to protect your family, the funds you responsibly placed into a heavily marketed, high-yield savings account that barely yields a fraction of inflation, it has all been forcefully diluted. Without anyone ever taking you to a courtroom, without anyone ever pressing a gun to your head, you have been legally and systematically counterfeited against. Let us make this intimately personal. Let us strip away the economic theory and look at what is actually being stolen from your home. When you pull a $100 bill out of your wallet and stare at it, what do you see? You see a piece of specially blended paper with green ink and the face of a dead politician. I need you to completely erase that definition from your mind forever. That piece of paper is not money. That paper is a physical certificate of your human time and your biological energy. You had to surrender an irreplaceable fraction of your existence to acquire that currency. You had to wake up at 6 in the morning while it was still pitch black and freezing outside. You had to sit in mind-numbing bumper-to-bumper traffic for an hour each way. You had to endure the toxic, hyper-competitive politics of your corporate office. You had to bite your tongue when your manager disrespected you. You had to sacrifice watching your children take their first steps or attending their school plays. You traded the single most precious, absolutely non-renewable resource in the known universe, your finite, ticking human time, for a collection of digits. Therefore, when the central banking system prints money and causes inflation that destroys 20, 30, or 40% of your purchasing power over a half-decade, they did not just invisibly steal your paper, they literally stole your life. They confiscated the hours of stress you endured. They stole your youth. They walked into your past and deleted the biological energy you expended to earn that money, rendering your past sacrifices entirely meaningless. The cash you are holding on to so desperately, the numbers you check every night because you have been socially conditioned to think it represents absolute safety, is actually a violently leaking bucket. You are bleeding out on the financial operating table, and the people at the top, the architects of this quiet destruction, are watching from their high-rise penthouses, practically laughing. They are laughing because you are still playing the game strictly by the rules they wrote specifically to keep you running on the wheel. You are working harder, taking fewer vacations, missing more family dinners, all to gather more certificates of time that they can devalue with a single, effortless keystroke. This is not a crisis for the people in power. The systemic devaluation of your currency is a mathematically designed, fundamentally required feature of the fiat money system. They want inflation. They desperately need inflation, because the entire global system is currently drowning beneath a catastrophic, historically unprecedented ocean of debt. Governments around the world owe trillions upon trillions of dollars. If the money you hold in your pocket actually maintained its purchasing power, if a dollar today bought the exact same amount of goods 10 years from now, those governments could never mathematically pay back what they owe. The debt would crush them. The governments would default, the fiat system would collapse, and the people in power would instantly lose their grip on the world. So they deploy the ultimate elite trick. They deliberately destroy the value of the currency itself in order to slowly melt their own debt away. It is the perfect crime. When they devalue the dollar by 30%, the real weight of their national debt shrinks by 30%. But simultaneously, the real purchasing power of your life savings shrinks by exactly the same amount. Inflation is nothing more than a hidden, extremely aggressive tax that completely bypasses the democratic process. It requires no debate in Congress. It requires no vote by the public. It does not require an armed tax collector knocking on your front door to demand your assets. It operates entirely in the shadows. It is a silent, continuous wealth transfer from the poor and the working middle class, the people who have no choice but to save their wealth in cash, directly to the massive debtors, the government, and the ultra-rich who hold debt and hard assets. Every single time a politician steps up to a podium and enthusiastically announces a massive new stimulus package to save the economy, every time the central banks announce a new round of quantitative easing to stabilize the markets, you should feel a cold chill run down your spine. They are not stimulating your economy. They are placing a massive, invisible straw directly into your bank account and taking a long, impossibly deep sip of your future labor. Now that you see the depth of this robbery, now that the mechanics of the silent purge are laid bare before your very eyes, the most dangerous psychological trap you can possibly fall into is waiting for external salvation. You watch the televised debates, you listen to the polished political campaigns, you genuinely, desperately believe that if you just vote for the right politician, if you just support the right political party or the right magical financial policy, they will eventually turn off the money printers, reverse the damage, and humbly return your stolen wealth to you. Let me shatter that incredibly naive illusion right now. Absolutely no one in power is coming to save you. No one is riding in on a white horse to protect your savings account. The system you are trapped inside is not failing or broken. It is functioning exactly as it was ruthlessly designed to function. The billionaires, the massive asset managers, the corporate titans, and the political elite do not view inflation as a tragic mistake or a temporary policy error. They view it as their primary tool of global dominance. If you sit passively on the sidelines, complaining on social media, waiting for a miraculous law to be passed that stops the prices from rising, you are actively choosing to be a voluntary victim. You are consciously accepting your role as the disposable battery that quietly powers their matrix. The mask is off. The silent purge is not a glitch in the system. It is the system. Every raise you celebrated, every dollar you saved, every sacrifice you made in the name of financial responsibility has been quietly taxed by an architect you never elected and a mechanism you were never taught to see. You cannot outrun a rigged game by running faster, but you can stop playing by their rules. Stop storing your life's energy in something they can devalue with a single keystroke. Start converting it, even a fraction of it, into things they cannot print. Land, gold, equity in real businesses, assets with a hard ceiling on supply. You do not need to flip the entire board overnight. You need to make one move, one real move. Because the moment your wealth lives outside their paper system, you are no longer their battery. You are no longer their fuel. The game does not end, but your role in it changes forever. If this changed the way you see money, even a little, drop a comment below. What is the one thing you're going to do differently starting today? There are no wrong answers here. Every person who wakes up to this is one fewer battery in their machine. The comment section is open. The conversation starts now. If you want more truths they never taught you, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. This community is built on people who refuse to stay asleep. And if this video gave you even one real thought, one like is all it takes to help this reach the next person who needs to hear it.